how do spouses get to the point where they start hurting each other? I mean, how do two people who profess love for each other, two people who said to themselves, I will be committed to you until death, how do they get to the point where they start hurting each other? As we were preparing for this and discussing it, I was very curious. I had a lot of questions in mind. Do people really intentionally decide to hurt the other person? How then do they get to that point? We'll be talking about this and more, so you want to stay tuned. Thank you for joining us. I am Chidi Akunna.
And I'm still Victor Akunna.
Always. If you're new to our channel, Foundation for Family Affairs, hey, hit that subscribe button and the bell next to it so you're notified when we drop our content. And I will not fail to invite you to just go through our channel. We've got so much we know will be of benefit to you. And thank you to all our returning subscribers. We cannot fail to thank you. Yes, thanks for coming here always. So let's talk about this. How do two people who were once in love, because I want to believe by the time you get to the point where you're hurting each other, do they fall out of love?
That's a very good question, right? Because, the other day I was researching and researching on divorce, and I found out that the rate of divorce for men over 65 kind of spiked. I can't remember the exact figure. 63 to 65, thereabout. Kind of spiked. I mean, these are people that probably have lived with each other over 30 years, over 40 years. Getting to that point where you can't stand each other anymore and you are now divorcing. So sometimes people get to that point where they feel that they can't stand it anymore. They are now in a relationship whereby there's constant level of negativity, constant level of toxicity. What will create that kind of situation where the person you profess love to death do us part, you now become sworn enemies. And that's a dangerous thing. It's a dangerous thing for someone who knows you quite well to become your enemy, because the person knows your weaknesses, the person knows your strength, the person knows who are likely to call, the person knows where you're likely to go to seek help, the person knows how you think. That's a very dangerous
if the person doesn't have the fear of God.
True. Right. But that's a dangerous adversary to have in your corner, to have against you. Right. So we're going to be looking at some key things. How do couples who used to love each other get to that point where they can't stand each other, to the point where they begin to hurt each other, where they are beginning to be innovative in inventing mean things to do to each other. It's not a good place to be.
It starts very gradually, isn't it? It starts with the little
Absolutely.
things. I mean, over time, people, if they are sincere to themselves, would just look at themselves or look themselves in the mirror and ask themselves, how did I get here? Why am I this mean? Okay, and I think the first thing that comes to mind for me is their belief system. So some people, it just has to do with the way they are wired. We are products of our beliefs, of our belief system. So for some people, especially when that's been all they've been exposed to, they've been probably born in an environment that was very cantankerous, and their parents throw jabs at each other, neighbors hit each other. There's a tendency to think that's normal. So a normal, harmonious environment, that's the word I was looking for. A harmonious environment would then seem odd to these people. Like, why are we not fighting? Fighting should be part of it. Do people just stay and not fight? We're saying it and laughing, but it's really serious because, if that's been your upbringing, if that's been your exposure, it's something to query. That you sit down and truly ask yourself, how have the things I've been exposed to, influenced my thoughts so much, and that I've adopted them as my belief system, and I'm running with them, and then running my current family with those beliefs.
To be honest with you, the word you use, belief, is a word that become a cliche, but that's one of the most powerful words. Because your belief system is what differentiates you from the next person. Your belief system is what determines what you will do in a specific situation. Your belief system is what shapes your value system. All right. So if you believe some people, no matter how disadvantaged they are, no matter how desperate they are, they will never steal from anybody because they have a belief system. So your belief system is so critical. Some people believe that if they are not quarreling with your loved one, significant other, something is wrong. Maybe the person is pretending, maybe the person is hiding something. Some people believe that if a relationship is not cantankerous, all right, it's a boring thing. And so if you have someone like that who has that kind of a belief system, no matter how you try to normalize things in terms of having a healthy relationship, they're going to see it as a negative. They're going to see it as a minus. All right, so that's why you have to have conversations with people. While you're having conversations with people, their belief system will come to the surface. You have to be able to know that. We wrote a book, Relationship Red Flags, which will flag up some of the things that single people should look out for before they say yes to someone. All right, because once you say yes to someone, the person is going to determine a lot about your finances, about your spirituality, about your friends, how you feel about yourself, your daily experience. It's very powerful, the person you bring into your space. So belief system is one of the critical things. Are you the kind of person who believes that there has to be quarrel for things to go well? If everything is quiet, you just feel like something is not right. You have to check that beliefs and ask for help. Because if you think this way, you're not going to have very fruitful relationships. If just have a check and look at the relationship you've had and how long they've lasted and how you guys parted ways, you see a trail of failed relationship because this belief system is not compatible with a healthy relationship. Yeah, so it needs to be checked.
Right. Okay. And just because you mentioned relationship red flags, I think we would leave the link in the description box in case you want to purchase it. Yeah. All right. So another point I think is prolonged stress. Oh yes. When you're very stressed, your level of tolerance diminishes. Things you would normally just overlook would become a big deal. Yeah, exactly. Because you've stretched your body to that point where you really can't process things rationally, so that could have an impact on how you relate with your spouse, your significant other. So we said prolonged stress. So when you get to that point where you start living, you adopt that as a lifestyle. So it becomes normal that I go a long time stressing about this, going through stress, subjecting my body through stress, having very little sleep, probably little food, eating on the go, not having time to just reflect, meditate, find myself again. When that becomes the pattern, you really wouldn't be bothered. You may not even realize the sort of person you've become. You sometimes become very negative, or you become very moody, and at that point you start snapping at your spouse or the people around you, and they're all wondering what's wrong with this person. You've changed. So when it becomes prolonged and you're not taking the necessary breaks, that could be a problem.
That's a very good point. I want to come from another point of view to say what is likely to lead to prolonged stress in a relationship. One of the things can likely lead to prolonged stress sometimes when people are making transitions. All right, maybe when people are leaving a particular job to another job. All right, you've got into that job, you want to make an impact, it can lead to prolonged stress. Sometimes when people are leaving a location to a new location, they have to now find accommodation, settle their children in school. It can lead to prolonged stress. Really prolonged stress. So there are different things that can cause prolonged stress. Sometimes when you just have an external person, maybe an in-law that is just barraging your mental health, coming and encroaching into your space, that probably this person is your sponsor, you can't really tell the person off, but the person access to your family is causing you a lot of emotional pain. This kind of stuff can really test what you are made of. Can test the fabric, the foundation of your relationship. But there is something we often say as a couple. We say that it doesn't matter the amount of water outside the boat. It's the water that gets into the boat that causes it to sink. Right. So it doesn't matter what is happening. If a couple, working together to manage the challenges coming at them from outside, the challenges within, you're going to swallow them up. So it doesn't matter what the challenge is, it's when you're not working together. So those kind of things can cause. Another thing I like to point to add is, if the stress does not have a deadline,
Oh yes, yes.
You know, it's not like, oh, we're going through this project now. In 2 months' time.
Yes.
There's no deadline.
That could make it easier.
That could make it easier to manage. So you're just going on and on and on and on. So that's why we understand when people are trusting God for a child, for example, that they can't really decide that this is going to end. So you have to get to that point where you don't allow that to get to you.
Yes.
And remember, we waited as well. We didn't allow that to get to us. You say, no, we're going to live our life to the full. When the child comes, you're just going to plug into the fun. Until if you don't have that kind of mindset to insulate yourself from external comments, external criticism, external, you guys are going to turn on each other. So prolonged stress, when you don't have a deadline, when you have an end date, can cause a lot of things. And people, like you said, begin to snap at each other. You know, people just, because at that point, when you have been in a prolonged, I remember some time ago, you know, I completely burnt out. I didn't want to do anything. Some people even lapse into depression.
That's true.
So it's not a prolonged stress. They just get to that point where they are just flat out. They don't want to do anything. Nothing in life stimulates them. They don't want to think that they used to find joy in spending time with your partner, gisting, talking with your partner, going to work, you know, being a blessing. You don't find any form of joy from those. It's not a very good sign. So it can really cause a situation whereby the person becomes overly self-absorbed and leaving the pressure to the wife or to the husband to begin to pick up because once your partner is not doing anything, it's not pulling themselves, they become a dead weight that you have to lift because
that could be overwhelming for the other person.
Exactly.
Yes, and frustrating. Yes. Okay, that was a very good point. Okay, so another point could be not addressing issues the right way. Not addressing issues the right way. And when we say there's always a right way of doing things. You know, sometimes it could be just learning to ignore things, not focusing on the little things, you know, but we say these things, sometimes in practice, they are difficult, depending on the context, right? But this is something you've got to do. You've got to build that muscle to be able to tell you, okay, at this point, I shouldn't be giving a lot of attention to this. Emotional muscles. You know what issues should capture your attention, what issues should trigger the right emotions. I don't just let myself go. Because sometimes that letting yourself go could also be a trigger to your spouse. You know, let me give a scenario. Probably something has happened and it relates to something that has to do with your family. And I am a bit put off about it. And instead of controlling how I manage the situation, what I say, my outbursts, I just let myself go. That it could come across the wrong way. And if you don't also interpret it right, depending on how it is for you at the time, you could also say to me, hey, and you don't speak like that to my people. It now becomes my people, no longer our people. You know, so things like that, not managing issues right. So we need to always be in that place where we make a proper assessment of the situation, a proper judgment as to what to do. That's really crucial.
Wow, that's so powerful. That's so good. That's so good. What I'd like to add to that is, in terms of not managing situation right, sometimes, like someone said a while ago, that we don't see situation the way they are. We don't see the situation the way they are. We see the situation the way we are, through our own lenses. So, for example, your partner, you've been calling your partner, he's not picking up or she's not picking up. The situation is the way she or he or she is not responding to your phone calls. Now, if you are the kind of person who interprets that behavior as cheating, it's going to project that energy into that situation. But that's not that may be or may not be what is happening. But because that's the way you are, that's the interpretation you give to it. All right. So the thing about this kind of situation is that once there is, I like what you said, there is the right way of managing conflict. One of the right way of managing conflict is giving people the benefit of the doubt. Asking questions. This is how I feel about this situation. This is how I see it. How do you see it? And listening. Sometimes we are fixated in our own perspective of how the situation is. That this guy is out to get me. This lady is out to get me. It may not be true. It may not be the case. So in a situation whereby you may not even have a conversation about it, and you are now self-absorbed, you are sulking about it, and you are now projecting and interpreting the situation from your own lens. Like, oh, She did this because she's this, because he's this, because it's that. What happens is that people now begin to build this, either a fence to protect themselves, which now creates some other issues like silent treatment, like stonewalling your partner, gaslighting your partner. Those kind of attributes follow. Those guys, those other, they are all brothers. They all work together.
Right.
But the real issue has not been addressed because you've not given her the opportunity to even express. Even maybe sometimes you may even give him or her the opportunity, but the person may not even articulate their speech well and even become, because sometimes you are trying to get to the bottom of something, you find out that it's even creating bigger problems because the person you are having a chat with is in a zone of attack. Very important for you to be able to create that kind of situation where you can say, you know what, let's try to get to the bottom of this without blaming the partner, because very few people do well under blame. You are blaming the person for this, you are blaming the person for that. Very few people can take blame in that way. So if you are blaming them for the bad thing, blame them for the good thing as well. All right. So, for example, you are the reason why our child went late to school. Also blame them the fact that thank you for getting the food ready, because there is sometimes we are only focusing on the negative thing. We are not focusing on the positive thing that your spouse is doing. Right.
Yeah, okay. Very nice one. And then I think in that too, we could list that with unforgiveness as well, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So there are some things, sometimes people don't just know how to let go of issues. So even though you've been wronged, that's part of knowing how to address issues.
Absolutely.
Know to forgive, just let it go. You don't have to keep digging until we get to the bottom of this. Sometimes you just have to let the issue
Sometimes we'll get beyond the bottom, we'll fall out to the other side.
Right. Okay. So another point I think is selfishness. That can hurt. That can hurt. Where your spouse now feels like it's all about you. If it's not in your interest, then you can't be bothered.
Yes.
It's not nice when that's the case. It's a marriage. It's a marriage. We're in this together. So I should be looking out for the interest of my spouse. I need to be looking out to ensure, he's right. Sometimes we get so consumed in what we're doing, especially when it's like a busy time for you as well. Sometimes you're just so drawn into that you don't make time to check on the other. How are you doing? Yes, you're stressed and you feel, he should be, making me breakfast, assisting, pulling his weight. But how about sometimes you, in the midst of all that's happening, you stop to also check how the other person is doing.
Point.
Let the person feel like I matter to you. Like, yes, I count as well.
I like what you just said, in the sense that, why not check the other person? Sometimes we're focused on what we want from our partner. Yes. Oh, I want her to do this. I want her to do this. I want her to do that. What does she want from you? Because when you are thinking, when you're in the mode of withdrawal, you're not thinking of making deposits. Relationship doesn't work that way. Sometimes, and this often happens to family relationship. They're only thinking about what they are going to get. Oh, I'm your wife, you owe me that. I'm your husband, you owe me breakfast in bed. I'm your... No. Even if they don't owe you. If they do that, they are being good and they are serving. They are trying to make your life. But when you put it on their neck and say they owe you, it becomes obligatory and nobody enjoys doing something let it be out of joy. The person is serving. All right. So, he does this, he does that. What are you doing? We're only hearing about what he does. What are you doing as a woman? What are you doing as a man? Oh, she does X, Y, Z. She does this. Oh, before
she'll tell you she's at least blowing his trumpet.
Yeah, well, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good place to start though. But that's not enough, because after a while people begin to, but even though we don't keep score, but unconsciously people keep score. Like, why is it that every time you wake up, you are waiting for me, the moment I come back, the first thing, we need this, we need that, people get exhausted. I mean, show enthusiasm that I'm around. Not just see me that, now that guy that will run around is here. Oh, the lady that will run around is there. No, people don't like to be used.
Yes.
Because that's an abuse.
Yes.
So it's very important for you to not to allow yourself to move into that selfish mode, because selfishness drains the relationship of intimacy. You begin to make decisions. So let's describe, how does selfishness look in practical terms? You are going to make food. You're not asking your partner what would they want to eat. You just make what you want, and then you go and then you have a nice time. It happens once, that's not a problem. But when it becomes a pattern, the person now, if the person is not very mature, the person may do the same thing, doing their own thing. At the end of the day, the bills, electricity bills growing up, both of you are going to face it.
But then that means we're already hurting each other.
That's it. So those are some of the actions. So selfishness create actions that create hurt. Because if you are focusing on your own self, most of your decisions will be decisions that will be insensitive to your partner. You are inviting somebody to the house, your partner doesn't know. They just turn up in their pajamas and somebody is just showing up. And that's not how they want to come across. That can really, really be hurtful. So, but it happens. But it does happen. You know, you just plan things and you just go off somewhere. You're not thinking about childcare. And you are leaving your partner who also has a meeting, and you just, those are simple ways that people do things that are very hurtful, that create hurtful ways.
That was very, very practical.
Yeah.
Well done. Yeah. Okay, let's take the last point for this one. And we will like to hear from you, would like to read from you. So if you have other points you think it would be nice to address this, we'll be very happy to read from you. So the last point we have for this one is not communicating your expectations. This is a big one. Okay, not communicating your expectations. So you get to that point where you're expecting your spouse to read your mind and be able to tell, you've seen, I've not been in the mood to chat all day. You never asked me why, and then that makes you really hurt. But you don't realize that because you're hurt, you create the same cycle. So your spouse now is upset that, why is she hurt? Why is she not speaking up? Like, am I supposed to be? So the questions start flying around the house, but we should get to that point where if you feel a certain way, you should be talking. So express yourself. Now, it might be a subject you think your spouse may not be able to cope with at the time. How about finding the right time? Find the right time, but ensure that that expectation is communicated in some way, okay? You don't have to be rude about it. I always say, if you've reached the point where you've been married for a number of years, or you have even courted for a number of years, you should be able to understand the other person. So you understand the other person's triggers, kind of. So you'll be able to tell, okay, this person's possible reaction to what I have to say. And then you know how to say it. So it's just managing that. But ensure you communicate your expectations. When expectations are not communicated, when they are not expressed, they oftentimes will not be met. Yes, unless your spouse is a very good reader.
Oftentimes they will not be met. That's the truth. Yes. That's the truth. Very few people have the capacity to read minds. Even if you have spent a lot of course, you can pick up a few cues here and there, but it may not be very clear and very detailed. So expectations are, as if you are in a relationship with somebody, you will have expectations. All right, you may have high expectations, you may have low expectations, but you will have expectations. All right, so the thing about expectations is that it's something that you may not even realize that you have. If you ask single people now, what you expect from a man, they will tell you whatever they are saying to you is the expectation they have. Now, whether those expectations are realistic, unrealistic, some expectations are some expectations are realistic based on the person that you are in a relationship with. There are some people that they cannot cook. No matter what you do, they cannot cook. So don't have expectation that they will cook. So create a situation whereby maybe maybe that's not a good example to use, because even if you cannot cook, if you truly want to learn, it's a skill. It's not a talent.
Yes.
All right, that you either have it or not. But I'm trying to use for an example whereby you know that somebody cannot do a particular thing. Don't begin to project those expectations on that person, because they will not be able to make that move. That's one. Two, you have to be able to, like she said, communicate those expectations, because sometimes the partner is not even aware, and you are not even aware that you have those expectations. That's why it's good for couples to have regular conversations and just have like a family meeting. How are we doing our finances? Communicate your expectation of finance. Communicate your expectation may be, let's keep the money until it grows. The other person thinking expectation is, this money doesn't come, it may not come tomorrow. Let's enjoy it right here, not where something happens. So now both of you have different expectations around money. Communicate those expectations and find a middle point. And that's how couples keep getting better.
Okay, so feel free to share your point if you have any. Otherwise, we will invite you again to hit the subscribe button and the bell next to it so you know when we drop this lovely content. All right. And do you have last words before we check out?
Thank you for reminding me. So, last word is this. Be intentional about finding out what will make your spouse happy. Because sometimes when you're used to someone, you're not really thinking about their needs. You're just thinking about the needs of the family and sometimes your own needs. But be intentional about saying, what will make this person happy? And what can I do today? That's why we define romance as the little but consistent things that you do. What can I do? What little thing can I do today to put a smile on his face, to put a smile on her face, and do that one thing? Now the question is, what about if they do, oh, my spouse doesn't appreciate things? That's not the reason why you're doing it. You are doing it because you've decided to be a different person, a better version, a better husband, a better spouse. Do that anyway, irrespective of their reaction.
Okay, and we'll see you on the next one. You take care.
Bye-bye.